Dr. Fauci, can we get a follow-up to the president's claims just moments ago? Yeah, folks, the thing about Tide Pods is everyone reacts to them differently. Sure, anecdotally, there have been some success stories floated around, but the science just isn't there, okay? And as far as ginger ale enemas Mr. Trump was referring to, I would ask all Americans, no, all people, to refrain from trying this. He means well, but that one was just stupid. The Born to Be Mild podcast.
Hey, hello, and welcome back to Born to Be Mild. Starting the week of May 3rd, 2020, I'm hanging out here with Ronald Cabuno. You know me as Peter Crawford. Ron, anything interesting happening at all this week?
Yes, sir. 3 bags full. We've got a lot going on. We have reopened the state of Ohio. We're going to take our sweet-ass time doing it because we want to make sure that this cat does not get out of the bag once again.
Oh, yes.
We've got a real big mask debate, especially here in the state of Ohio. Our governor, the eloquent and used-to-be beloved Mr. Mike DeWine, said at the beginning of the week we're going to start with having businesses, employees, and their customers wear the masks.
Right.
Then he switched to Tuesday to nothing at all. And then Wednesday back to employees. So I guess it's okay for all of your clients and customers to come in there and spread it around.
Right.
But I guess we can get to that later because there is much more uproar in general over the lockdown and how long people have been quarantined and being kept from one another. And I think they've just about had it.
Yeah, people, whereas you saw about 3 or 4 weeks ago, people were really praising DeWine, Amy Acton, and the way that they'd been great with Ohio. People were still on board with Dr. Fauci on a national level, doing a good job trying to keep people briefed on actual facts. And even, from the right, you were hearing some sniveling jokes at Trump's expense because he didn't really know what he was talking about. But all of that is out the window at this point.
Yeah, we're looking at a general unrest.
Yes. I mean, all the patience has run out. And now, screw medical science. We want to go outside. No masks. No, there's no disease. Never mind that Thursday was the deadliest day for the disease so far in the U.S. So clearly
Terrible.
It's not gone. But
right.
Like you said, the civil unrest has reached the point where people, they no longer trust masks. They no longer trust doctors. They don't like Fauci or Amy Acton anymore. They don't like Mike DeWine. They don't like anyone telling them that they can't go back to work again and live life as normal.
I can understand that because we sit here as a very independent country with an independent spirit. Mm-hmm. And we do not want people to be telling us what to do. And I would like to think that this debate breaks down on those lines. It's broken down on the lines of who is willing to let someone tell them what to do as an adult. Who is willing to bow down at the feet of science and have a little humility and say to yourself, I don't know everything, and I'm going to trust the best practices that these experts are recommending to us.
You say experts, and a lot of the stuff I see online these days, specifically on social media, I know that's not the most prominent platform I should look at, but everyone seems to want to put experts in quotation marks right now. These experts, so-called experts, like when did they switch from being experts to quote-unquote experts? Just when you got tired of staying inside? Because you trusted
the problem is that they have quote-unquote experts from all sides and from all walks of stupidity bolstering their opinions.
Oh, it's the internet, right?
Well, yeah. For instance, the notorious Bakersfield Bros that I spoke of before.
Video. Where that video used to be.
Right, yeah. So that video got taken down because it was full of complete quack science and purposefully misleading sentences and whatnot. And what you had was that on the discussion that people would have on Facebook is they would rightly shoot it down with basic facts and tell you how they were miscategorizing deaths against the entire population of a state versus deaths versus, infected people, and just want to scare people or let them know that it's nowhere near as bad as it is. And you got people who are actual medical professionals like backing them up just because it suits how they're feeling.
Yeah, we've kind of defaulted as a nation, as a community, back to the whole confirmation bias that people have always gone to when it comes to matters of politics.
But that sucks with the coronavirus pandemic because, as Amy Acton and DeWine said at the outset, they're like, listen, when nobody or all the deaths are dramatically decreased by the end of this, they're going to say that we did too much and we're fine with that. And so that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing decreased numbers and we're seeing a great response by the state, and people are thinking that it's because the coronavirus actually wasn't that deadly.
Yeah, it's the same thing as we talked a week ago, I think, about the way that the rural area hospitals are not packed. They're not overflowing with people the way that hospitals in Columbus or New York or Los Angeles might be. So these people are really quick to confirm, like, where's show me the proof of the virus? Like, how come I'm not seeing enough pictures? Meanwhile, there's these really credible doctors in California trying to put out a video of actual information coming forward with the truth, and it gets taken down. Now, if that's not oppression, and it's like, dude, but do you even know what you're talking about, or are you just living in that realm of confirmation bias? So it's tough. I saw a girl I know on Facebook the other day posted a whole meme about how Dr. Amy Acton isn't even a doctor. Kind of suggesting she's in the Dr. Phil, not a real doctor category.
Not a medical doctor.
Dr. Phil is not an actual doctor. But right. I read this and I'm like, what are you talking about? And I commented on this one. I'm like, yo, she went to medical school.
That one got you.
She went to medical school. That one
brought you in.
And then she served as a resident in 2 different hospitals. One of them a children's hospital. And she's like, well, but she didn't practice, so that's just dangerous. I'm like, no, this is dangerous. Like, just because she didn't go into being an attending doctor and seeing patients about their tonsillitis and their diabetes, because she went into public health instead. That's where her career went. You know, kind of like the field you
or
would
because
want a
you're
person to be in.
basically spending hundreds of hours researching the minutia of the diseases and symptoms that you have to then pass on to the doctors who see the patients. Like, you have to know way more than they do in that role.
Right,
it doesn't mean you're not a doctor.
Right, you're studying what diseases are impacting us and how, and what kind of epidemics to expect. It's a completely different field, but yes, she's a doctor, and yes, she's more than qualified, so just don't talk. So we've got a lot of stuff going on, obviously, with people trying to just get over with this, and they can't, and they're frustrated, and they're pissed because it's out of their control. They think their rights are being stripped. They think we're being oppressed, and suddenly it's Stalinist Russia.
And all of a sudden, we forgot that this thing is still amongst us and is still a threat to the vulnerable communities and some not vulnerable communities.
Yeah, and we've got to really, if we're going to start reopening, which we are. How did DeWine? Do you know where we landed last on how we're opening things up? Because I know bars and gyms and restaurants and stuff are still a no-no.
Yeah, so they are still on the back burner. Like they said, they're going to have this 2-week test period per phase to see how the infection rates go up or down or what happens. And it makes perfect sense. They want to make sure that the most vulnerable occupations are the last ones, although dentists and elective dental surgery was allowed to continue or commence.
Yes, I did see that. Dentist, elective dental surgery, what's like veneers and stuff?
Right. So things that are completely
essential.
Not medically necessary. Yeah. And that really does account for a lot of what you would consider the dental procedures, I think. Like some of them, a lot of them are considered non-essential.
Right. I mean, if you've got a toothache or a dangerous problem going on with a botched root canal or something, like you're obviously going to want to get in there. But veneers, that could probably wait. You can push your quarterly or bi-yearly cleaning back a couple months, and I don't think your teeth are going to fall out. So
I don't know. Let's check Joe's basement. See how white he's looking. I think they just turned up the contrast on his monitor.
Yeah. I think a lot of this unrest, I mean, obviously, like I said before, it's being politicized now. So you're seeing more people on the right being fed up. There are obviously also the ones in more rural areas, so they're seeing a lot less of the effects than people in the cities are. But it's because Trump has kind of changed his mind a little bit. He's not pushing for it the way he was. He's discrediting Fauci. Now suddenly the entire country hates Bill Gates and they hate Anthony Fauci because suddenly they're uncredible and they're trying to kill us all. But I mean, Trump, I don't understand where he flipped. I know he wanted to get the country open sooner than later, but do you think it's all economical? I mean, is he just pushing for this because of that?
The economic fallout is completely ravaging his re-election campaign. So he basically has to resort to the lizard brain mentality that got him there in the first place. That's what's going to basically score him the most points with the populace, or at least with anybody he feels like he can pick up or has to retain. He has to restoke those fires within them if they're still there after all this, because you do have a lot of center-right people who are kind of seeing the light throughout this pandemic, but there might be just enough time if he can turn it around that we catch the collective amnesia once again and some of those people return to the herd.
Yeah, good point.
So what you have to do in the meantime is hopefully make the case for the alternative, because right now Joe Biden's been sitting back and obviously letting Donald step in it left and right. But there needs to be a bit more of a collective front coming from the Biden campaign. Who do we have in terms of a dream team that we want to have in a cabinet position? Or where's the talent is what I want to know. Where's the leadership outside of the presidency?
There really is none. And Biden has spent his time busy denying the sexual allegations that's going on right now. And instead of proposing, potential solutions or avenues to attack the offensive and maintain the defensive with this disease. And as far as people behind him, I mean, Hillary Clinton threw her support to him. Great.
Sure.
It was obvious that was going to happen. Does that mean
that's going to bring 3 people?
Yeah, exactly. Does that mean anything for this campaign? But I mean, who are we looking at? Who are the also-rans at the liberal front right now that are supposed to be making an impact? Where are they? Where are their voices? What happened to Bernie Sanders? Is he dead now?
It's going to be so difficult to campaign in a regular style during this year because you're not going to be able to hold a single rally, I don't think, unless you're Donald Trump and you consider going to West Point a rally. And I'm sure he does because he sure as hell is going to turn it into one.
Well, I mean, he's forcing people to attend, right? All the students
That's right.
have to come
You better
back.
show up.
If you don't come to my West Point rally, can you imagine being in a college, you've been sent home from college? They're like, dude, Trump is coming to your college. Like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, you have to go back.
Yeah. And he's not going to want to be there alone, hint, hint. So pack your bags.
There's a lot of merit to people being concerned about the economy right now. I get a lot of the reasons why people are excited to get reopened, besides, the cabin fever. But, we're so far away. You can't just be like, well, I'm bored, so suddenly I don't trust doctors anymore. Like that, I don't understand the logic behind that. Currently, the virus is just now blowing up in Africa, which is going to be the new epicenter. I would fucking hate to be in Africa trying to find care for this. Maybe
absolutely.
If you're in Cape Town or something. But
well, I don't know, because at least they're a little more open to having international aid. Maybe if I was in Russia right now, I would not want to catch corona.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, nothing to see here. He doesn't have no corona. He's fine. Be like, please send ventilators. And Russia's actually blowing up right now. They saw their largest spike, I think, just yesterday. So it's so weird because it sweeps over the globe, and in this way it went east to west essentially. But it comes over like a wave, and some people in some backwaters just get missed on the first go-round. So not everybody's on the same page, and that's why this timeline is so fragmented for every single community.
Yeah, there's no blanket feeling for the way that this has affected the world as a whole. I mean, it's affected everyone, but it's been up and down, and it's been here and there. It's somebody like Russia. Yeah, they're more closed off. They're not North Korea, obviously. Oh, by the way, welcome back to Kim Jong-un from the dead. You were dead 1 week ago, and now you're not dead. So,
yes, and I would like to thank his hair and makeup team. He's looking spry as ever.
Yeah.
And well fed.
I mean, there's always a danger of that going away.
No, but hey, listen, if you were actually in ICU for a couple of weeks, you just can't even put the food away, let alone.
That's true. But he managed to keep his portly physique. So yeah, that's
he's a
interesting. But there's
jolly
evidence
old
right
soul.
there how little we know about. But you said Africa is more willing; they're more dependent on the foreign help to get them going.
Right.
Whereas Russia, yeah, they're kind of behind that same. I hate to use the term red curtain, but they are behind.
I was going to say a wall. Yeah, go for it.
You can go with a wall. That works. So but yeah, the disease itself far from over, and we need to be concerned about the economy. People like Airbnb was supposed to have like their biggest year ever this year, and now that's all gone. Like,
Sure.
they have no chance.
And not that I care about that corporation at all
I don't
because of
either.
what it's done to urban cities across the globe.
Oh, yeah.
But you can understand that a lot of people were ramping up for a very big year in many different sectors of the economy.
Right.
And it all got put by the wayside. We're looking at, obviously largest job losses since the Great Depression and the largest drop in the stock market since the same time. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a real effort and unemployment, right? But so there are certain segments of the economy that are just fine because they are so necessary. And there are others that are going to take a really long time, like let's say movie theaters, just because confidence in public settings isn't going to be there for quite some time.
Right. Yeah, movie theaters, sporting events, concerts, like big festivals in parks and amusement parks and zoos. That's a lot of business. That's a lot of a whole lot of money that is going to be just.
I mean, like we should at least be grateful that we have public spaces available to us. You got people like Italy who are just finally being able to start utilizing trails and stuff for the first time in months. Now, obviously, any kind of congregations are not allowed. You're not allowed to picnic, but you can at least ride your bike again. So it's all relative, and we need to understand, just like before this pandemic hit, how fortunate we are in America to have all that we do have. And so that, like, when one or two little things get taken away, we don't need to feel like all of our liberties have been taken and flushed down the toilet.
But people do feel like that.
Well, that's the overreaction that I'm seeing. So, like, you see these people with guns at the Michigan State Capitol, and somebody rightfully said, all right, now what if those were black people in the state capitol with slingshots or something? You know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't get... Yes, something completely benign in comparison.
Yeah.
They would not get half the treatment and respect that these white maniacs have. And someone said, you misspelled terrorists when they said they were protesters. I was like, you're damn right, because what are they doing? They're saying that they're exercising their Second Amendment right, but they're really just trying to intimidate. It's shameful.
People suddenly believe that they've gotten so tired that it's interesting to see the split, because it's really come down to, like I said, it's on the ideological political spectrum now. And it's the people who are falling far on the right have decided, no, this isn't dangerous anymore. Meanwhile, all of the doctors and nurses that I know are still like, yes, stay away. Why aren't you listening to us? Why are you listening to that one dude you went to high school with?
Well, the reason is because you have people in the medical professional field who are either far right or Trump supporters or just addicted to retail therapy or whatever, and they want to have those same bullshit facts bolster their opinions. So I've seen nurses, and they're like, well, the numbers aren't accurate. They don't know what they're talking about. And I'm like, all right, so you mean to tell me that they're doing this on purpose, or we're just trying to figure it out and evolve with the science?
Yeah, what is the end game for people who have that conspiracy theory? That this is like, what do they think that the hoax is?
No, I've literally seen other real crackpots, not medical professionals, openly say the conspiracy shit that's like, well, you get paid more the more COVID patients you have per hospital. And that's the kind of underlying deviousness that they think would be going on. That's the only thing they could come up with as to why the numbers would get fudged, is because of some kind of money or control, one government bullshit. Like, these people will believe anything. And, it's whatever it is, it's all backloaded just to support their leader.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of, the evolution just in 2 weeks, it's been crazy, but it's a whole lot of people just being fed up and getting a case of the earlier aforementioned amnesia that you speak of. People suddenly saying, like, I'm healthy, I don't need a mask. Like, we told you 2 weeks ago that you're wearing the mask to protect other people.
It's not about you, you asshole.
It's for other people. How did you forget that? It was like 14 days ago.
Well, you know what? The weather has turned nice, and by God, if I don't get to go out and stand in line for ice cream next to the knuckleheads that I live down the street with, it's just not going to be a Sunday.
Yeah, it's a well-known fact that, medical experts always lose their expertise the warmer the weather gets. So obviously the thing that we're all pushing for is we'd like, well, not all of us I can say, but we'd like a vaccine. We'd like a vaccine, those of us in in the know about how vaccines work. It would be nice to have that.
Those of us who are looking at this with their sane glasses on.
Have you been following any of this? I want to make sure I pronounce it right because it's another one of those that I've only seen in writing. But Remdesivir, is that correct?
Remdesivir?
Remdesivir? Okay.
Yeah. So that is by the Gilead Corporation. That thing got the fast track, and it's now actually being used as a treatment. Fauci was all on board, and when I hear that man talk well about something, that puts it in the good column for me most of the time.
Yeah. For those of the people out there who absolutely discredit Fauci now, let's not forget that he was there for Reagan, he was there for George H.W. Bush, he was there for Clinton, he was there for W. Bush, he was there for Obama, he's still there. The guy knows what he's talking about, and he's saying that this stuff works. It's not a cure. This isn't a 100% cure, but it reduces
No, it's a treatment.
symptoms.
What it does, it takes your course of treatment from 15 to 11 days. And he was saying, you know what? It's like 30% reduction. It may not seem like a lot, but it's really, really big.
It's a lot.
Because you have that many people getting off of ventilators or whatever that quicker, then you reduce the influx, and you also reduce the long-term effects of the virus on each individual.
Right. There are fewer people out there with extra severe cases because they're able to lessen the impact of the virus. So they're going to have to do, more work on it, but they're done with the placebo. Like, it's out there, and this isn't your chloroquine. This is an actual approved treatment that the doctors agree upon does work as a treatment. So get behind this and throw all of that hydrochloroquine fish treatment stuff you had into the trash.
And there are a couple of hospitals around the country that were still administering the hydrochloroquine, and they were getting the absolute woodshed, or they were getting taken behind the woodshed by the CDC this week, I believe.
Yeah, the verdict is in. If you were still debating the hydrochloroquine, not a treatment, not effective, not safe. It's over. You lost. You lost the argument.
Yeah. As soon as something starts doing markedly more harm than good, it's out the window.
Correct. So, but we're trying to. That's a great sign that we've actually got something that's medically viable to treat this.
It is, because we're sitting here and the questions are still myriad. We don't know if this thing will even have a vaccine available.
Exactly.
We don't know how many different mutations and variations it might take. We don't know about reinfection. But what we do know is we have some people who are all on board with taking it smart, and some people who really don't care.
It's not going away. And if it does go away, it's pretty much agreed upon by most of the experts. Now, we don't know for sure, but we're going to see a big spike again. Possibly a bigger spike when the flu season and the colder weather comes back around in the fall.
And I would say to that, the reason being is that you have so many different places for it to have seeded since the last outbreak. Mm-hmm. So we have this outbreak in the spring, and that was only because we had however many initial infections that were seeding. Now we have this thing ruminating in all these small little pockets, and then you could see the large flare-up again, and with so many more starting points of inflection, you can totally understand how that second wave would be more severe.
Yeah, and it might be more severe in different places. Like you're saying, we could see an actual flare-up in more rural areas. We don't know. Maybe Sweden, who thinks that they've developed herd immunity, suddenly gets godsmacked by the virus in about 6 months. So there's the verdict.
Listen, I don't wish ill on anybody
Absolutely
and on their
not.
approach
No.
if they think that they have the right science on their side. So it was really a calculated risk that I hope doesn't backfire tremendously, but I don't think it'll end up being the popular route to take going forward.
Overall, I think people are scared still, but they're fed up, and I think a lot of people are thinking that, or they're doubting, I should say, that social distancing ever worked, that our shelter-in-place procedurals have been effective, because people are looking at the numbers in New York, and they're saying, well, New York's got as many deaths as, other entire nations. So, how do you know that any of this stuff is working? I can tell you right now that New York has as many people as a lot of these other nations in a very, very close proximity living to one another. So factor that density in there, and then factor in yourself, people like you, and this audacious mindset that so many Americans have that have said, fuck social distancing, fuck stay-at-home orders, fuck masks. Probably more than a lot of other countries, more than people in Italy, more than people in a lot of countries. And maybe that's part of the reason why we're having such a hard time getting everything under control, because it has been proven that in a lot of areas where people have been responsible with the social distancing and with the masks and with the stay-at-home, that the numbers have gone down.
Yeah. We are so lucky to have so much personal space here in this country.
Oh, God.
That we equate the amount of personal space that we have with the amount of personal liberty that we have. And we also inversely equate it with how much collective responsibility we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that is a problem a lot of the time. We're not looking out for one another because we feel so liberated and independent. And that is a big problem in a lot of different ways in American society, but none more when you have something like a pandemic that requires the collective action of all citizens.
Yeah, people have kind of reinterpreted, they've rewritten, if you will, the Constitution as a document that really is 100% about your own, and when I say your, I mean your one, you alone, your personal liberties. And it's not. Right. It's about the collective liberties of all Americans. And people are kind of getting lost in translation when they read this and thinking their personal freedoms have been stripped. The whole point is that your freedoms don't infringe upon other people. And if you're outside with your gun coughing all over me, then you're infringing upon my rights.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to be seen. We're still learning about this virus. So people have got to be a little bit more patient, and their patience has fucking run out in the last 2 weeks.
So America is a deeply religious nation, as we know. And it goes in, it's kind of hand in hand. When you look at, I don't trust science. Why? Because my religion tells me I don't have to, or my religion says something that is at odds with the science, and I believe my religion over everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust the government. Even though my dear leader is the head of the government, he has told me not to trust it. You know, in general, Americans say, you can't tell me what to do. All these things add up to really not looking to help one another out.
Yeah, it's I don't want to call us a selfish nation, but there is a little bit of selfishness in our backbone. And I'm not trying to condemn the entire country, but you see a lot of these kind of sanctimonious platitudes written online about the freedoms that we have and the way that I've been taught, and I know this for certain, I know this for a fact, and the doctors are wrong. And I become apathetic to the entire thing. Like, I don't know what to tell these people. They're not listening to doctors. They're not listening to I feel like every day I read something about this new that we've found because of my friends that are doctors, and we've given doctors more time to come up with things like the remdesivir, to find out more things about these antigen tests.
Well, you know that remdesivir, I believe, was originally for Ebola.
Is that right?
And yeah, okay. So it worked okay, but they had other treatments that were better, so they went with them. Mm-hmm. And so this one was kind of on the shelf, as some sort of respiratory saving drug. And they just pulled it off the shelf and said, yo, let's give it a try. And yeah.
But giving doctors time to do that is great, right? I mean, that
yes,
testing is
giving
important.
Doctors the time to do that is great.
I mean, but we've advanced. It may not seem like it to your average citizen out there, but we've given doctors time, and in just a few weeks, we know. Do you remember 3 weeks ago how long it took to get a goddamn test? It was like impossible, and now they've got these tests where you can like spit out your window, and then like that's a good thing, and like instantly they'll have a not 100% result back for you, but they'll have a pretty accurate result back for you. And that's amazing, because having more testing, knowing if you're positive, means that we can contain the virus more. Christ, in Thailand, this is kind of off topic, but a couple weeks ago, like, dead bodies are passing this on to people as well, even the deceased. Like, these are things we didn't know that we're learning because we have more and more time. And as time goes on, we're going to know more and more, but we've got to stay patient.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have to get really diligent about reporting these types of things because, they say that you're supposed to quarantine at home as long as you don't have really severe symptoms. Well, if we're supposed to get contact tracing up and running, you have to report those cases. Mm-hmm. First of all, you have to go get tested. So like it's a personal responsibility thing once again if we really want to get on top of this. You have to have people go get tested, and then you have to have those tests get reported. And then you have to be able to have the infrastructure to go and make those phone calls and find out who that person's been in contact with so you can then, nip it in the bud each and every time. I didn't listen as to how they were planning on getting this giant field of workers they were going to need for contact tracing, but I'd imagine that you're going to see a lot of help wanted ads in that regard real soon.
Oh yeah, the personnel, and let's talk about the antigen tests and the idea. Are people are worried?
Right.
Are we going to be able to get a vaccine?
Test? The antigen test is the pregnancy style test that I was talking about last week. Mm-hmm. That one is essentially going to be coming to market, but you got a lot of false negatives. They were saying something right now in their testing is like 15%, and that is nowhere near good enough to be. That's a high number. Yeah, because if you are just a private citizen and all you want this is for your own peace of mind to know that you've had it or not, and that you obviously didn't have any adverse effects to it, that would be great. You could walk around nice and confidently. But if this thing comes back and says that you've had it or you didn't have it and it's not accurate, then what's the point in the first place? Right.
It's not, and you've got to have a really low percentage of error before people are going to have any confidence in these tests. Right now, we're worried that we're developing antibodies at all because people have gotten this twice in other countries. So what are we trying to do here? Are we ever going to have immunity? Is there going to be a vaccine? Or are we just going to have to look for treatment?
I know, so much up in the air, but I do believe that as we really put our nose to the grindstone on this one, that the treatments are going to come hopefully fast and furious far before the vaccine gets here.
Yeah, and we're trying to fast track the vaccine. They've got, I forget what they called the project, but they're trying to get it done by January. I think it's like a lightning speed or something like that project, but they want to get it done by January, which not only is a little bit unrealistic, but we do have a precedent set for that. Now, this was a while ago. We're talking over 40 years, but in 1976, the Ford administration tried to get a swine flu vaccination pushed through in a hurry, and it was a complete debacle. So, yeah, we're learning more about COVID every day. In addition to your cough and your fever and your shortness of breath, the CDC is saying, watch out for chills, shaking, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, loss of taste or smell. Pretty much anything that happens when you get sick. Be wary that you might have symptoms, but just please be careful out there, everyone. I know we say it every week, but I know it's crazy, but just try to stay patient, and we'll get there at some point.
I know, because I'm sitting here and I want to go visit my parents in North Carolina so bad.
Oh, yeah.
I want to go visit Brittany's family up in Erie, PA. It's really not that far. It's like all these people, we're in constant contact with them on the phone. We know they're all healthy. We know that if we went there, we would be as safe as possible, en route. And so it's like once we're all healthy together, doesn't it seem like we should be able to spend time with each other?
Yeah.
And I understand that it's like, hey, I could have got it 2 days ago or whatever, and I could be asymptomatic currently, and I could give it to everyone unknowingly. And that is why we have to be careful. But God, by God, I don't want to do it if I don't have to.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're all getting. I told you earlier today that I had an aunt who's sick, and I would love to go visit her and my mom in Florida. She's not sick with COVID, but she's ill, and you can't right now.
No, yeah, my wife's great uncle passed away this week, lives in Florida, and nobody gets to go. It's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. So let's talk about that for a second. The effect that this is having on people mentally is undeniable at this point.
Oh yeah, so Parks and Recreation, one of my favorite shows of all time.
Great show.
Yeah, had a very nice reunion, and it was all about social distancing this week, and it was also all about mental health, and they were able to raise over almost $3 million for mental health charities just with this one special. So that was really cool, but yeah, it goes to show you that it is at the front of people's minds during this pandemic.
It's taken a toll on people at home because we're stuck at home. We've had people just overwhelmed with fear and, changes in their eating, their sleeping, just, all kinds of people abusing alcohol, drugs, it's just.
Oh, Pete, if you want to talk about like, just think about the collective psyches of Gen X, Gen Y, and the millennials. Think about how fragile and sensitive we have been versus subsequent generations. And then just look at the decreased amount and percentages of coupling that we've had and long-term cohabitations and relationships.
Yeah, I'm an example.
So you've got more and more people who are alone and fragile and self-aware of their shortcomings by themselves, sitting here having to go through all this and dealing with their neuroses and any actual clinical, mental health disorders that they may be living with. And I really do feel for everybody out there dealing with that.
Yeah, it's terrifying. People hanging themselves and jumping out windows. Like, it's real. These people are really struggling, and they're legitimately taking their own lives. And not just us folks who are stuck inside, the people on the front lines. I mean, good Lord, can you imagine the stress and the absolute day after day, relentless dealing with
right, because let's say you're going into the medical field as a physical therapist and not as a trauma surgeon or something. It's not what you signed up for.
Hell no.
Like having to sit there while this person like horrifically is taking their last breaths while you were just trying to get in a little PT with them for the morning. You know what I mean? Like, these people are being thrown into situations that they will possibly never recover from and certainly never forget.
Yeah, it's got to be. I can't imagine, because I don't work in those kind of conditions. But there's a doc.
And I've always said it takes a certain kind of person to do those jobs.
It does. I have massive respect for all of my friends and all of the other people out there who work in these fields. My heart goes out to you right now because I don't know what you're going through, but it's got to be tough. We saw a doctor, a woman in New York, who took her life because the stress of the virus and working in these conditions. So,
I think I saw somebody who took their life because they thought they might have passed the coronavirus on to their family.
Yeah, right. And we mentioned the story a few weeks ago about the man who took his.
The man and the wife who they both
died, and they weren't even positive. So,
right.
These are a lot of the tips that the CDC gives. I don't like to turn our show into a public service announcement, but take breaks and from watching stuff and the bad stuff. Stop looking at all the social media. Exercise, read positive things. Try to talk to people as much as you can on the phone and however you can do it. And if you really are in crisis and you're thinking of all the negativity this has come about, call the Disaster Distress Helpline. The number is 1-800-985-5990. If you need to call someone, call that number and try to get yourself some help, because it's unbelievable to imagine what everyone is going through, and we're all going through it differently. We're not all in the same boat. So
No. And I am a compartmentalization master. So I can throw things to the wayside real quick, but I know a lot of people cannot.
Yeah.
and I feel for them because it's understandable. You sometimes you have to ruminate in these things, but a lot of the time you don't. And so, like you're saying, like I saw the suicide prevention hotline number, that little meme or that post being shared a lot on social media this week. And I thought that was really great, just get that number out there, and it's kind of a passive thing. You don't have to raise your hand and be like, oh, thank God I needed that. Thank you for sharing. It's just out there for more and more eyeballs to catch. And if it happens to be that they need to call on somebody, that's available.
Yeah, it's stuff that people need. And if you don't need it, you know what? Share it with some other people because maybe they need it. Like I said, we're not all in the same boat. People, especially companies right now, keep saying that, and it's bullshit. Everyone is dealing with this a little differently. People have different socioeconomic situations. People have different worldviews. They experience things differently. They live in different areas. So,
and not only that, like at your own personal place of work, let's say everybody has to go back to work. Well, you have some business owners who are like, well, hey, we sat this out long enough. Let's get back going.
Right,
Nothing to see here. Business as usual. And then you have other ones who are like, gosh, guys, we really don't want to have to open back up, but we know that everybody needs a paycheck and we need to keep this company open. So yeah, we're going to open up and we're going to have every precaution in place that we can. And we really we want you to have reduced hours and, so you have that. And God forbid if you are one of those sensitive people, but you work for the hustle up, let's get going and rejigger this economy once and again, people, right. You're like, fuck, I'm at the wrong place.
Exactly.
Like, why can't all these gung-ho people work together?
Exactly. You didn't get a choice on which employer you got, so it's
that's scary, man.
It's a scary situation for everyone. So look out for your fellow man and your fellow animal, perhaps.
Oh God, yeah.
See that?
Because apparently animals can have the row.
Yeah, cats are testing positive for the old row.
It just goes to show you. No.
I want to hear the end of that sentence.
You put that pussy in the street for too long.
Oh my God.
That's how we get the explicit rating, motherfucker.
Yeah.
No, sorry, that is. Anyways.
Gotta get out.
Yeah, no,
buy
your
cat masks. Get your dog some masks, You can get...
That'll be so funny because so many people are already wearing masks that look like cats. They should get their cats masks that look like humans.
I would buy one of those. I would buy one of myself and wear it because
absolutely
that'd be great.
You'd never be able to tell. It's just like when I wear my eyelid glasses.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Yeah. Is that guy wearing a mask? I can't tell.
Real slick. Yeah, It's very lifelike.
A lot of dark stuff there. Let's try to get on something a little more lighthearted. Didn't somebody quarantine themselves somewhere weird? Didn't you tell me something about that?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I mean, just imagine all the places you could quarantine yourself for a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. What if there was a place called Fantasy Island? Would you want to go there? Well, this guy got caught quarantining himself inside of a closed Disney park this week. And he had the right idea because that place looked really awesome and has been closed to the public since 1999. So he said he stumbled upon what looked like a tropical paradise and decided to ride it out there.
Wait, what state is this in? I'm curious.
Well, guess what? He was a Florida man and didn't leave the state, so that's where it happened.
Oh my God.
At good old Walt Disney World.
Oh man, that is so funny. This is one of those guys that I can't tell if he's a maniac or if he's a genius.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, because that place might be closed for a little while, and if nobody's checking a deserted island in the middle of it, you're probably good to go as long as you can find some a wild boar, a Timon or a Pumbaa laying around.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're having a hard time with this, why not be at the happiest place on earth, right?
Damn right. And if you die, they're just going to sweep you under the rug anyways.
Oh God.
So, murder hornets.
Oh my goodness. Just when
you want to tell me about these? Have you seen, just when we thought it was safe to go outside, is that what you're going to say?
Yes. Mother Nature throws something else at us. People are losing their minds about these things.
And why wouldn't you? If you saw one picture of this, you'll have nightmares.
These things are absolutely terrifying.
They're 2 inches long.
They're huge. The queen can be 2 inches or more. They've got stingers that can puncture through the bee suits.
They can, yes.
Oh.
All right, so now what do you got? Now you got to go out in a suit of armor.
Get your medieval Renaissance fair suit out.
But they're called murder hornets because they like to gang sting up on you. And after accumulation of some, dozen of these stings, it's basically like a poisonous snake and you can die. But they're murder hornets because they go into these beehives and just absolutely massacre all the bees. I saw this picture of this guy's beehive that was decimated, and it was nothing but headless bodies just in a big pile outside of it. It was horrific.
The Rob Zombie movie for bees.
Yeah, so they don't care about the heads, and they just take the thorax back home to feed their young.
I just can't even. They're just a pile of bee corpses, and they do all this in a matter of a couple hours. The
quick
entire
work. That's right.
hive is just decimated. Every thorax gone, just bee decapitated heads.
The sentinel was asleep that day because that was his. He had one job, and you let the damn murder hornet right in.
Let the murder hornets in. They kill something like 50 or something people in Japan every year. They're not going to end the population of the world, but they are here. So watch out.
No,
for
but
giant
it's
hornets.
essentially, it's, like an Asian carp. I hate to use the geographically similar term, but, it's an invasive species that we really have to be careful with. They're looking out and trying to find each individual nest over on the West Coast in like Washington because they're that bad and that detrimental to our local native species.
Yeah, Asia, giving us all the things we don't want. No, that's a joke.
Bunch of assholes. No, seriously though, we have some real blowback coming against China from the virus.
Oh, yeah.
And that is something we're going to have to look out for. It started with this WHO conspiracy stuff about how are they trying to help cover China's ass.
2 weeks ago. They were in cahoots.
In the outset of the... Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there, and we're going to have to see how the global community decides to be punitive against China. But places like the United States have to tread very cautiously, because if we're going to start trying to put on any kind of sanctions or something like that, we have to understand that they hold all of our debt,
the economic
and they make all of our they make our pharmaceuticals and yada yada yada. We've already gone through this pissing match over the last 2 years with them, and now if we're going to want to basically blame them for trying to start World War III, we better have contingency plans in place.
Yeah, the means, I hate to use the term means of production, but they
Commie
are
bastard.
such a major pillar in the world economy, just in what they provide. The amount of debt
They were the factory of the world until they started paying their people living wages, or comparatively living wages.
Right. To what, do we pay our people living wages?
Well, compared to Laos, you know.
Yes. I don't know anything about the Laos economy, so I can't comment.
Well, you know what I'm saying. Once China started making money and having a middle class, we had to start finding other poorer countries to ship our stuff to be made, like Indonesia and India and Bangladesh, yada yada.
Free trade working at its best. So,
well, it's lifting many people out of abject poverty, but it's also keeping us from living our best lives over here in the States.
Right. Yeah. So, without getting into a discussion on globalism.
No, but we definitely did have to talk about this China thing, because we're going to see a lot of that coming, and it's going to be kind of like, are you with or against the retribution to China on the run-up to this presidential election? So you're going to have Trump making this a very big contentious point, where it's going to be like almost giving in to him if Biden decides that we have to be punitive to China as well. So you have to come out in front if you're Biden and let your position be known, so that it isn't just a reaction to Trump's position. And I think that has to happen across the board, because if he gets to set the narrative, then all you're doing is basically saying, I am with or against Trump. And that's what he wants. Mm-hmm. So it's a positioning game where you kind of have to get out in front of these things and make a justification for it, so that you're on the record before he has a chance to make some insane case for his position. And yet, if he has a chance to make a rational position, then you can say you were already there too, and he had to come on board with you basically because there was no other option but to do so.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think most people, and that's the way it's kind of been for most of the ideologies that he's espoused throughout his presidency. These are platforms that people already wanted to land on. And all it took was a little bit of reinforcement on his end for them to jump into that camp.
Sure. I mean, Newt Gingrich invented the wedge issue. And essentially what you do is you don't bring anything up unless it's going to divide people for your benefit.
Right. Abortion, gun control. Yeah. But when we're talking about some of these, and it's all of the things that come up when you talk about party bylines, and that's ultimately what the backlash against China. I think you're going to see a divide, like always, between liberals and conservatives when it comes to the way that they're treating the entire scenario.
That's what I'm saying. So if you're Joe Biden, you want to come out with a sensible policy towards China and what they have or haven't done in terms of investigating it or possibly punishing them or working together with the international community on finding a solution, you say that shit now, because you might not be privy to everything that Donald Trump is during his briefings, but he doesn't listen to that shit anyways. You can watch cable news and know as much as Trump does.
Exactly as much as Trump does, right? Because that's what he does.
That's what I mean. And no more. No less.
Exactly.
It's wild. So I think he's in a unique position to be able to get out ahead and maybe have a dialogue with the American public about how we should think about China going forward.
You think that happens?
Because it's going to be very important whether or not he wins this election. Getting America to understand the precarious position that we're in a little better couldn't hurt.
No, it's a good idea. I'm not sure if I see Uncle Joe coming out to do that. But someone, like you were saying earlier, someone needs to step up in the party.
Somebody's got to fucking do it.
I mean, I'm not.
And it's not going to be a Republican.
No, because,
we know
they're all
that.
going to fall in line behind Trump.
Speaking of, did you see we have the return to Congress coming back on party lines as well?
Oh, well, that was just a matter of time, just like everyone else getting impatient. So
I didn't know you could do it like that, but I guess you can. I guess whoever runs that chamber gets to say whether or not you come back.
That's pretty much the way that our entire government is systemized. So,
but you have a doctor like for the House and a doctor for the Senate. So does that mean the doctor and his recommendations are partisan as well?
Well,
I didn't look into it, but
it
boggled my mind that the Senate and Mitch McConnell's like, oh, we got to get back to work. Well, everybody's done. We're everybody's
That's
fine.
always been the case. It's back.
And by the way, I need to get Mitch McConnell into one of our skits because I got to do his voice, a little bit more. I love it so much.
Yeah. It's just that we've always kind of seen agendas come into play when parties or any other divided group picks out their doctors,
But it's messed up to think that the House of Representatives collectively, or at least in a majority fashion, said, we don't think that it's prudent for us to come back because of the safety threat posed to our members, and that's somehow partisan.
But it is. It's what
here we are. Yes, I know that this is the reality today, but
it's become partisan.
It blows my mind. Yeah. Right. But the science is not.
The perception of what the science, the credibility of the science is what has come down to partisanship.
And so the problem is, like I said, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, is that the transparency that, we have been afforded through this process has been able to bring the nitpickers out of the woodwork. So the fact that you have death rates going down from 4% mortality or fatality rate is a great thing. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we anticipated, or at least a lot of people anticipated, just because of the nature of the testing. But they would like to point to it as being fleeced and how this thing is being ginned up to be far bigger of a deal than it is.
Yeah. Everybody's a grifter. They're all trying to scam you at every turn. It's unbelievable. But that's the mistrust that you see from a certain tribe in this country right now. And as the people go, so do the doctors for their representatives in Congress. It's the same bullshit from the top to the bottom. Just
when are the aliens Tom DeLonge was talking about going to come and just take us away?
He knew the whole time. God, out of nowhere, the Pentagon's like, "Hey, that guy from Blink 182, I think he was right. Let's release this information now, and maybe people will stop talking about the coronavirus."
No, absolutely, because he was singing about all the small things. We didn't know he meant tiny gray men.
No, his band that he was in after that, though, Angels and Airwaves or whatever, a bunch of the songs were really all about his belief in UFOs and aliens and actual evidence.
And that's awesome. But, the evidence that he saw was basically the same thing we've seen for the last 3 years, which is those Air Force videos or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he got visited or abducted or something.
Right.
It's just like, he's like, I found this stuff and you guys need to see it. And
here's the proof. They're acknowledging I'm right.
I got it. It's like, great, UFOs real, aliens real. Now what? Now what do we do with it? We can't go chase them.
Guys.
You see how fast they are.
Yeah. No, it's usually just the definition of a photo, of a UFO photo. Literally an unidentified flying object. It's not a fucking flying saucer. There's a light or something.
What they said was they changed how they classified it, and that was the big deal. So they now call it phenomena.
Okay.
Which then leaves it much because it was
phenomena, whatever.
Well, no, they called it an unidentified vehicle or something where they knew what it was, essentially, where they assumed they knew what it was.
Oh, I see.
And now they don't assume they know what it is. And that's the big difference.
Okay. Well,
So it's kind of like admitting you don't know what something is. Amazing.
yeah, no, that is it. And are you telling me that we have Tom DeLonge to thank for this?
No, I'm not. I don't know that much about it, but I can greatly assume that his basement is not the source of freedom for this information.
So sports, you kept up with the Michael Jordan documentary?
Yeah, so I mean, like, as I thought, it was going to be the Rodman shit, and it was.
The Bad Boys.
That was freaking great.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a real good dose of Chicago versus Detroit, and I really wanted that.
So good. Absolutely so
because you have Dennis Rodman as the link between the two teams. And I think that was an amazing way to go about it. Now, I don't believe that Isaiah got the credit that he deserves, but at least they showed how integral he was to a team that took down the fucking Showtime Lakers two years in a row.
It's a show. I mean, these were first of all, this documentary is about Jordan. So
That's right. And Michael Jordan absolutely hates Isaiah Thomas, so he's never going to look like
literally
the superstar that he
off
is.
The dream team. That's unbelievable.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I knew that from before.
Yeah, I knew that too. But I was hearing that it was like almost unanimous because he was so disliked.
The Pistons, man. Nobody liked that team.
But then I heard that it was a lot of backlash from the comment that he made, I think like a year before, about how if Larry Bird was black, he'd just be another
he
what.
did say that. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah,
he would just be another player.
They didn't touch on that in the documentary. Weird.
No, but there were that fallout, stands with him to this day. They made a real big deal about him walking off the court after the Bulls finally beat him in their third try in the Eastern Championships without shaking hands. And he said, "Listen, when we beat the Celtics, they didn't shake our hand. Larry Bird literally walked out with like 12 seconds left on the clock. Their whole team was the hell out once they lost." So he had a leg to stand on with that argument. But obviously Jordan wasn't trying to hear it. And he's like, you know what? You guys whooped our ass the last 2 years and I shook your guys' hand in defeat. And the fact that once we climbed your mountain, you couldn't, return the favor. He was pissed about that. But, the candor has been so great from all sides, but especially from Jordan, man. I love listening to him get frustrated. I love listening to him chuckle when certain things get brought up, like when he had to go get Dennis Rodman out of bed with Carmen Electra. That story had been on the back burner for like 20 years.
Isn't it hilarious to see that kind of scandalous stuff in the language on ESPN? I fucking love it.
Yes, it's so great. But not only that, but to see it come out while these people are still alive and are still very well versed in the stories themselves. Yeah. And you can hear from all sides on it. That's crazy.
Like, oh man, I forgot that Carmen Electra was a person, but that's
exactly.
great.
I was gonna say, and so it's a societal and cultural flashback outside of sports as well.
It's
you get to see the kind of cars Michael Jordan's driving up to practice in, and the kind of outfits that he's got on, like at the beginning of his career, where he looks like he's got a zoot suit on,
just like and then everybody in what was that? New Jack City. Did you ever see that movie? Yeah, everyone in that movie. That's how Jordan was dressed. Wesley Snipes in New Jack City.
Yeah, you want to join me in this pair of pants? I got room for 5 other people in here.
My hammer dress pants. Oh my god.
Yeah, but exactly. Well, nowadays you have people dressing up sweatpants and joggers, so it hasn't gotten any better. We've just gotten things tighter.
Kind of full circle, but we'll get them loose again so we can start over, and I can get one of those New Jack City suits. Yeah, so that's been great. If you're not watching that, definitely tune in. If you're a sports fan, you've probably been watching it. So,
for sure. I finished this Buster Keaton movie or documentary that I saw by Peter Bogdanovich. Holy shit, is that amazing?
Yeah, I don't know about it.
All right, well, imagine Charlie Chaplin's dad, right? No, I mean, just imagine someone who would own Charlie Chaplin at what he does. Okay. He is that good at it. I remember seeing some old stuff as a kid of Buster Keaton, but watching it now is so fresh, so amazing. I don't think there's ever been anyone as talented in the history of film.
I'll have to check it out. I don't know that much about it. I didn't know he was that great. So,
all right. So let me set the scene. This guy started in vaudeville with his family at the age of like 3. And he was basically running the show and the best draw of the act by age 6. He was making $750 in like 1920 a week at the age of 12.
How old was Michael Jackson when he kind of became the front man of the Jackson 5? He was probably at least
early.
Early.
It's
6 is really young.
I mean,
so
like I'll Be There, like he was probably 7 or 8 or something like that. You know, with that young voice, absolutely, he was the best. But like they, all right, so they attached a handle to the back of their son when he was like a toddler, so they could throw him around the stage on the vaudeville.
an actual handle, a literal one.
An actual
handle. I thought you were
going
to say like a nickname or something.
No, yeah,
a literal handle.
That connotation of the word, yeah. They got the children's services called on them in like many states, several different states, because these people thought they were abusing the hell out of this kid. But, you know, he absolutely loved it. And just learned how to take a fall at the age of 2. And so you see these feats of strength. And not only that, he was directing these films. The genius. It's like watching Looney Tunes come to life. And that's exactly what Chuck Jones was saying.
Fantastic.
Like when he was doing Looney Tunes, he was getting his ideas from a real life person who was putting his ass on the line with these crazy things for laughs and for art. I cannot recommend it enough. I think it's called something like
What was it on?
Our Dear Buster, and it's on the Old People channel, Turner Classic Movies. But so I would like to know, did you have some more of this movie goodness that you want to bring my way? Because
I think I do.
I kind of missed out on it last week, and I was looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah,
so.
I always like to get your take on some of these legendary matchups. If you haven't been paying attention, my movie quiz is just a couple movies facing off against one another. They usually have something in common, and Ron tells me which one he prefers and why, and I'll give my input. So,
and I was gonna say, luckily they're all in the historical category, because if it was anything kind of recent, I might be missing out. I suck at keeping
the
up.
historical lexicon for sure, because I want everyone to have seen these. So
there you go, exactly.
Without further ado, let's go ahead, and I'll start off with one that I really like. And I think I know where you're going to go. But we're only talking about the first movie. So, Die Hard versus Lethal Weapon.
Okay, so truth be told, these types of movies are big, but they're not huge in my psyche and in my youth growing up psyche. Like, I didn't turn on Die Hard every Christmas, and Lethal Weapon is funny, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing that I was like rah-rah about. But I will have to go with Lethal Weapon, because I appreciate the humor of Mel Gibson and the interplay between him and Danny Glover better than the one-offs from Bruce Willis.
It's Buddy Cop versus Bruce talking outside. Yeah, Hans, it's another less. You got to kind of have an attachment to one or the other.
Now, he's funny, and I do like when he gets real frustrated, and it's funny, like he'll just get thrown out of a window and then shake it off in a funny way, or something like that. But the affect just it's nowhere near the personality connection that I make with a buddy cop movie like
Murtaugh
Lethal
and
Weapon.
Riggs.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's the guy's last fucking day and all this shit goes down.
Yeah. You know what, if I was going on with the entire series, I'd go with Lethal Weapon too. But because I like all 4 of those movies, and Die Hard's got a couple stinkers. Next up, I think I already know where you're going to lean on this one. We're doing a TV show again, and you already mentioned it today. So I've got The Office versus Parks and Recreation.
Well, you think you know where I would lean, but that is one of the toughest decisions I could ever make. The Office versus Parks and Recreation.
Very similar shows.
Because they are, and it's a feeling of like family and community that you don't get from hardly any other show. So like if you gravitate towards one, you gravitate towards the other. Mm-hmm. I think that my love for the public sector would give me Parks and Recreation over The Office.
Yeah,
I love the fact that they come into this old wooden municipal building and just, do their little thing that helps their community better. It's just a more fun concept, I think. In terms of characters, there's nobody better than Michael Scott.
And he carries that show because he's so good.
He does. But not only that, but like their number 2, Dwight Schrute, might be better than anybody on Parks and Recreation too. Like they're more absurd than they are on Parks and Rec. The types of hijinks that they get into are just so off the wall. Like Parks and Rec is just about silly, schlubby, regular people, but Office is about just like what kind of crazy stuff can they do in this small, confined environment.
You sound like you're leaning Office right now.
I know, and I think I do. Just because of the joke quality is so much higher. They really do shoot for the moon, and they raise the bar on that one.
Okay.
You
Hey,
think
I hear
so,
somebody
Vivian?
woke up.
Vivian's here. Yeah, Vivian likes it.
Okay. Well, I am going to go with Parks and Rec there. I think I like the small town insanity more than I like the workplace insanity. We'll go with 2 more. Give me a quick take on. I know you've seen these. Groundhog Day versus Ghostbusters.
All right, so I thought you were gonna say Groundhog Day versus What About Bob?
Oh, that's your Bill Murray.
But-
Okay. Yeah, I'm going Ghostbusters
Well, only
over What About. It's
because-
a little more legendary, but I do love that movie.
Well, I was going solo act versus solo act. Because Ghostbusters is the ensemble.
But is it really?
But Peter Venkman definitely stands out as the main
Exactly,
character. I understand. So that's not fair because I didn't see Ghostbusters 1 until I was much older. I saw Ghostbusters 2 at a far earlier age, so I would have to go Ghostbusters 2 over Ghostbusters 1, even after seeing both of them.
That's a hot take.
yeah.
Not many people were going to be with you on that one, but
Well, no, but if you grow up in a commercially inundated childhood such as I
Sure.
did, if it was sold in a Happy Meal, it pulls on your heartstrings.
no, I know. I saw Ghostbusters 2
Simple as
first as
that.
well, but we're talking about
I think we talked about this with Terminator as well.
Yeah.
But all right, so getting back to the original question, I mean, obviously, Groundhog's Day is fantastic.
Legendary. I got Groundhog Day for sure.
Yeah, that's probably in my top 25 movies of all time. I don't want to raise it up any higher than that without actually making the list and seeing, but it's one of those ones that's almost infinitely watchable.
Rewatchable. Exactly.
Yeah. So I can't say the same about Ghostbusters 1 or 2.
No, I've got
at
more
all.
childhood memories of the cartoon actually, the real Ghostbusters. Okay, well we're gonna do one last one here, and we're gonna stick with the old childhood nostalgia vibes. This one
Okay.
was really tough for me. The Goonies versus The Sandlot.
Okay, once again, so there are these things that I am not fully on board with the rest of America on. One of them is Star Wars. Could care less about that. Another one, like we just talked about, is Die Hard. Not really the biggest thing in my world. Unfortunately, I have to say that about the Goonies, too.
Oh no, was it just a little before your time?
I think that has a lot to do with it. It's basically like, I know a lot about World War II, but I know very little about Iran-Contra, just because it happened right before I got into school. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't in the history books yet when I got into school.
Okay.
But so I kind of feel that way about things that came out right when I was just a little too young, and it took me a long time or long enough to get back into it.
Well, Goonies is what, like 80, 84?
Yeah,
85
but I
maybe?
didn't have older siblings. Like, I can remember watching it at my babysitter's house because they had older kids. But, like, if left to my own devices or my own family, we weren't going to watch that for years because there was no one in that age cohort that was going to want to watch it.
I got you.
And so when you want to talk about timing, Sandlot came out right in my wheelhouse for one.
That was perfect.
For
right?
another, it's a fantastic kid movie and a fantastic sports movie and a fantastic historic sports movie. So it's got a lot of things going for it. I think that's a real easy one for me.
Okay, I'm actually with you.
Okay.
I go The Sandlot too, although I do have a lot of... See, I watched a lot of the Goonies in like the early 90s with
Yeah.
some of my older cousins and my friends' older brothers and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, that's during the rewatch phase.
Yeah, and it's loaded with like Josh Brolin's in that, and Sean Astin and Corey, well, on a different level, Corey Feldman.
On the Feldman.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even the little Chinese kid from Indiana Jones.
Dr.
with the Temple of
Jones.
Doom.
Dr. Jones.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Jones. So
Short round.
Yeah, short rounds in there. So I really love those characters. I love the idea of the treasure hunt. I love the truffle shuffle with the fat kid shaking his stomach.
You're going Goonies?
No, I'm still going Sandlot, but I'm saying it's a lot closer for me.
Okay.
The Sandlot has got so much heart. It's so just the
It's
kids,
perfect. It's literally in a world that you would never not want to inhabit as a child.
It's extremely close. People always ask me my example of a perfect film, and I always go right to Back to the Future. I think that's a flawless film on almost every level. But The Sandlot, you could make an argument that that's a perfect film too. And I'm going with The Sandlot. Like I'm sorry. It's just there's too much. It's got too much. It's got James Earl Jones.
And I love a voiceover. I am such a sucker.
Yes. And it's so great at the end when you see him as an announcer up there. And
you have the flash forwards. You can't get any better than that. I don't even care if it's Dottie than the Georgia, what are they? The Rockford Peaches coming in at 90 years old in their wheelchair. And it's, like, give it to me. I'm here for it. I want to see 4 different actors play this one character within one movie.
There are just so many great moments during that movie. Stuff, where the Squints fakes drowning so that he can make out with that girl.
Wendy Peppercorn, absolutely.
And then at the end of the movie, he grows up to marry her and have like 7
kids.
Children or 10 children. Yeah, stuff like that. Like that's just legendary. And so I got to go with The Sandlot there.
Good.
So,
good.
That'll do it for this week's movie.
That was fun, but I wanted to talk about sports movies in general, so we're gonna have to maybe do that in a larger segment, maybe next week or.
Yeah, we can do a little sports rundown next week.
Nice. So, because I really hope to be doing less and less coronavirus on the podcast, not because it's less and less important, but because we're going to be streamlining not only our opinions, but our approach. As the science gets clearer, as the numbers get clearer, as the testing gets, more widespread,
more ubiquitous,
there is going to be less debate about the numbers. There's going to be less debate about what to do moving forward. And once that happens, we're going to be able to start talking about other stuff, thank God.
Yeah, hopefully less of a fear of impending doom. And that's what we're
well,
really
some people get to
carry
carry that with them on a daily basis just for no reason at all. And we're never going to stop them from doing that.
No, if that's your norm, then by all means, rest at default. But I would love to eliminate that from my life. But as we have to go over it, and I think we went over some good stuff today, some good sports. You got anything else, Ron?
No, I just want to say thank you to Canada for banning assault weapons while we're still got some airtime, and that's the week that they did it. Yeah. It took one mass shooting for them to do so. So congratulations to you guys. Common sense prevails once again in the Great White North.
Yes, and that's all I've got. I hope everyone is, like I said earlier, being mentally well. Focus on that this week and do some stuff for yourself and check on your friends. Make sure everybody's doing okay.
Absolutely, folks. We'll see you next week. Thanks again to Ryan Little for the kick-ass theme music. Thanks again to all the sponsors, i.e. Mom, for sending me that early birthday card. And thanks to you, the listener. We really appreciate all the likes, feedback, and shares you've been giving us. If you've been thinking about giving us that 5-star review on iTunes, but haven't pulled the trigger yet, no better time than the present. It certainly does mean the world to us that our point of view is resonating with you. Thanks again.